And we are going to talk today about templates. So in that context, if you happen to click on this little plus button or tab here, AutoCAD will be opening a specific new file based on a template. Do you know what a template is?
Yes.
Okay, so in this template you can see that we have already some layers, and then of course we have some styles. For instance, we have here some styles, predefined styles, then we have a few dimension styles, and then even we have some multi-leader styles and table styles. Everything is saved within a file which is exactly the same as all our files, only it's saved as a template file. This is the only difference is the extension name. It's called DWT instead of DWG, and it stands for drawing template.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to answer your question, I'm going to draw something, and we better do it at specific dimensions from square one. I mean, for instance, my closet is going to be 100 centimeters by, sorry about that,
60.
sorry about that.
60.
I'm going to do something like this, 160. So
Yeah.
I have it right here, and for instance I can of course create a door, something here, and then create another door, and so on and so forth. Okay, but this is not exactly the point. The point is that first of all I have to create a block. So I'm going to create a new block called closet, and I'm going to pick a point somewhere here, and then I'm going to select my objects. Of course, I'm going to ask AutoCAD to open my block in the block editor, because the block editor is the only place in which I can turn blocks from static blocks to dynamic blocks. So I'm going, of course, I don't allow exploding because it's somehow
Yeah.
not very practical, especially when you can all the time edit your block. So I created a block, and I was taken directly to the block editor environment, in which I can find always these block authoring palettes. There are four.
How did you get that block editor?
Just
What did
when
you
I closed my block editor and I created my block,
Yeah.
and it was called closet, this little check over here, open in block
Yeah.
editor, will cause AutoCAD, when the block is in creation, to take me directly to the block editor. If I want to go to the block editor in another way, I just select my block and my block only, right click and opt for block editor. Okay?
Okay.
Now, the first thing we are going to do is create a linear parameter. And we have, first of all, our parameters here. And the first parameter we are going to use is the linear parameter from this point to this point. By
Yeah.
default, it's called distance 1. But if I select the parameter itself and go to its properties, I can see that I can call it any name I want. For instance, I can call it length. Okay, so you can see it's called
Mm-hmm.
now length. The other thing that is very important is that we are going usually, pardon?
No, I didn't say anything.
Okay.
What is the
In the kitchen.
Huh?
Kitchen, in the kitchen.
In the kitchen.
Sorry.
Okay, so now what we must do is create some action and connect it to this parameter in order to make the block able to stretch to the right or to the left, right?
Yeah.
So what we are going to do first is decide whether our block is going to stretch only rightwards or we want it to stretch leftwards as well. Sometimes blocks want to stretch symmetrically. I mean, if there is a window, for instance, over here, or in the case of the doors, we have two doors and we want them to be equal. I mean, the length of the block is going to change, but we want both doors to be similar. So let's create it now. I'm going to add some rectangle over here. And I'm going to tell OrCAD that this is going to be, for instance, 99 by minus 1 or 2. Okay? Sorry about that. But what I'm going to do now is stretch this from another point, from this end point over here, or maybe let's do it easier. Let's go and shift to select two grips over here, and then I'm going to drag it, but not from this point, but from the end point of here. And now I'm going to make it, for instance, 44.5. I'm sorry, maybe I'm not so focused. What I'm going to do is stretch this from this point using the from option, and I just click shift at the keyboard and right click in the mouse from this point over here in this direction, 44.5. Okay, so the middle is over here, and now I'm going to mirror this door about this point over here. I'm sorry, I have to add to it 5 centimeters. 5 centimeters. Okay, now everything is fine. I'm going to mirror it from this point to this point, and of course we have our two doors. Okay, so in this case pardon me?
Where are all these pop-up windows coming from? One is white, one is black. While you were working, you had different windows popping up.
You mean like so?
Well, that's one, then there was a black one.
There was a black one.
This was more square.
Okay.
I think you did it all a little too fast for me.
Okay, I'm going to check on the recording later, and I'm going to send you or edit, whether I'm going to edit the recording or send you a little additional video to describe all screens you have seen. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is both stretch it to the right and to the left all together simultaneously, because this is going to be at the center all the time. Okay?
Yeah.
The other thing I can do is change my insertion point, which is marked here by the UCS icon, which is the UCS for this block specifically. Okay, don't confuse it with the general UCS. The coordinates 0.0 or 0,0 here are for the block itself. Now, if I want to move this to another place, I can just use the base point parameter and put it, for instance, in the midpoint over here. Maybe it's more logical for me because I'm going to stretch both to the right and to the left altogether. How are we going to do this? I'm going to the Actions tab over here. And as you can see, there is an exclamation mark with a yellow background here. And this is for insinuating that we have no action connected with this parameter. Our action is going to be a stretch action. And the first one I'm going to connect to this side of the parameter. So AutoCAD will select this point. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to create, exactly as I'm prompt from the command line over here, I'm going to create a window and then select the objects that are participating. I mean, if this window over here gets bigger or wider, it will be stretching this rectangle and this rectangle together to the right, okay, because this is the right direction. Then, after selecting everything, when I click the right mouse button or click Enter from my keyboard, you can see that I have a stretch icon here for the action called stretch, which when I'm hovering with my mouse, it will mark the point and the window. When I click on it, it will mark the point, the window, and of course it will mark the object selected as well. Now, I can connect exactly the same stretch parameter, but this time I'm going to be doing the same for the left direction. I'm going to click here, click again here, select this, and enter. So now you can see those both stretch actions connected to the same parameter. When I'm done, I can obviously go in the block editor. I have a place called Test My Block. So I'm opting for Test Block, and I move to another place which looks very similar to the block editor, but it's lacking the block authoring palette. And this is a place for simulating what's going to happen if I drag this to this side or drag that to that side. Now, what we have to do now is take care about both actions to be similar in length and operate together simultaneously. So I closed my test block and I'm back in my block. Now, I select the parameter itself and go to its properties. And now I can say a few things about the value of this length. First of all, the distance type might be none, as you can see, but there are two more options. First one is called increment. For instance, when we are dealing with closet, maybe my closet is going to be 5 centimeters longer or shorter in a cycle from some starting width of 2 doors closet to the end, the maximum width of a door I can have. So you can set the increment, for instance, at a specific distance. For instance, let's go for 2.5 centimeters, okay? Then we'll say that our minimum distance for our closet is going to be, for instance, 75, and our maximum is going to be 125. Okay? Now, another thing I have to do is that I have to tell AutoCAD that my two actions here are chained all together. So I'm going to create a chain action using the number of grips here, but I'm going to do from the axis, from the midpoint over here. So I'm going here, instead of start point, I'll be using the midpoint. And now I can try to look how it functions. If I now click here, as you can see, both stretching operations are happening all together. And I can make it as narrow as I set my minimum distance. I can select the distance from here. And for instance, if I tell AutoCAD I want it to be 85, it's now 85. I mean, if I create a dimension here and I put it here, as you can see, it's now 85. Now, if I'm going to a lower number than 75, that was my minimum, AutoCAD will set it to the minimum. And if I order a maximum, it will put it to the maximum, which is 125. Otherwise, those doors will be bending or something. So this is the case with something that has some symmetry. And for instance, if you have an elevation of a building with a window, and the window has two frames here, two panels, and you want it to be wider or narrower, this is the case we're going to be using. Okay? So the first thing to do is create a block, tell it not to explode, and select always the open in block editor option from the beginning, and AutoCAD remembers it. So next time you open your AutoCAD and create your block, it will be clicked already on in here. The same thing can be done, for instance, for this depth here. Okay, so I just select another way to do it. This is much simpler. I go again to my block editor, add some parameter, some linear parameter, for instance, from this point over here to this point over there, select it, move to the action, select stretch to this side only. At this point, create a window over here and opt for selecting only this rectangle, because this part over here is going to keep on the same place. But this is not so logical to do, because if the closet is already sitting in its place, I guess I better stretch it downwards. Okay, so if this is the insertion point of mine, what I'm going to do is use the stretch action in this direction over here. Select this point, select this window, and select the objects, all the three objects. You can of course select them like so. I'm not sure about selecting parameters, so I just shift and click again and get rid of the parameter selection. I click OK. I see it right here. I see its direction, and I close my block editor and save the changes. As you can remember now, in the first example, I showed that this is going to be connected to the parameter itself, dictating its minimum, maximum, increment, etc. This is totally free now. I can move it wherever I want. And this is not so good, of course. So what I'm going to do now is go to the block editor again, select this distance 1 parameter, go to its properties, and tell it, of course, not to be increment, because I want to show you that there's another option called list. And in my list, I'm going to be using, this is the 60 depth closet plus the 2 centimeters of the doors. And I can create a list here. For instance, I'm going to go from 56 through 58 through 60 through 64. The 62 is already here. I put some commas here without spaces, and I surely must not forget to add those to the list. So now there is a list here, which this is the shortest, this is the longest, and when I close it, I can only move between those. I'm limited to those 4 dimensions only. Okay, is this clear, Kathy?
I'll have to hear it again. It looks very complicated.
Of course, you are going to watch the video again and again, and if you have any specific question, I will be glad to answer. Okay?
Okay.
Now,
The last thing that you did with the different 62, 64, why can't you in each case just say how much you want to stretch it?
Because I'm very much afraid of losing precision. I mean, when I'm going to just drag this point wherever I want.
No, I don't want to drag it. I want to say how much to drag just this one time.
Okay, this is possible, of course, if I take this block again and go again to the block editor and go here, select again my parameter, go to its properties and tell it to be not the list but the none option, like so. I can close it here, save the changes, go here, and you can see here that the distance is set over here. So you can write down anything you want here, and it should be working. Let's try it again. Let's have a dimension here. Let's add a dimension from this point to this point over here. And let's try distance 1 to be 55. You see that it doesn't work, and this works perfectly. Okay? This works perfectly. This is not exactly what I wanted it to be. I mean, I can try to understand, for instance, if I go and reset my block, and I know that when it's reset, it's 62 units from here to here, and I go here and I try to change it again, you can see nothing happens. That's why I prefer to use those. Of course, you can write down anything you want. You can go here and tell it to be 10 centimeters to this side, okay? Now, I believe the list is one of the best parts of the dynamic block issue, because most of the time, most of the things we are creating have some rules between. For instance, I cannot create something from one piece of plywood that is longer than 2.4 meters, because there is no such a thing in the world. You cannot buy it. So there is no point having dimensions that are not real world dimensions. So the carpenter later won't be able to create it by one piece. And if your intention is very specific, you better try to manage your blocks from the very beginning. That's why I prefer to, here I set an increment option, and here I set a list option, and of course you have any other option you want. Okay, you can do it freehand or freestyle at any case. I believe this will give you a good tool set for creating furniture and other modular objects. And of course you can, as I say always, the sky is the limit. But you better stick to the simple things, because if I have a block with 200 parameters, I will get very tired of this block very soon. But if it has 2 or 3 parameters, it's okay. And now for the main thing today. I said that if I click here, I'm going to have a file based on a specific, very specific file. And what I want to do is, first of all, open this file. And the file is set in the options of AutoCAD, in the Files tab, in the Template Settings, in a part here called Default Template File Name for QNew. QNew is exactly this plus button, or this in here. It's the QNew by the application menu A letter here. So if I click here, I'm going to use the QNew, meaning I'm going to open exactly the same template-based new file again and again with the same properties. So I'm going to this place over here, and I'm going to select this file in order to open it very easily. So I'm going to copy this, cancel, and when I'm going to the open thing, I just paste it in here and open it. So this is the DWT itself. It contains some very minimal things, like some styles for several annotative features, like text, dimensions, multi-leaders, and tables. Okay, so I have my styles built into this file. For instance, if I'm going to the style option here, you can see that I have created only 2 new options. One is going to be used into my dimension styles, and one is going to be my usual standard style for every day. And this one here I don't use, but is by AutoCAD as it came out of the box, and the same goes for this. If I'm not using it for some reason, and I want to get rid of it, I must first select another style to be my current style, okay? So if Arial is marked here as my current style, and I had no use of this style over here, maybe when I'm going to the purge option, I can get rid of my text style here, and you can find it over here. The reason I wouldn't see this before is because it was my current style and I cannot get rid of anything that is current. So I purge it now, and the next time I'm going to see what are my styles over here. There is no more annotative style, as you can see. Okay? Now, many people have many styles in their drawings, and this is sometimes very difficult to deal with. Sometimes people don't understand exactly how the text styles are built. So let's go from square one. If you click Style and go here, you must understand the structure, how the text style is built. First of all, it has a name. I mean, if I create one new, I will give it a style name. Okay? Now, usually I won't be using this style name because it's stupid. What I'm going to do is select the name and then select the same font and have both with the same name. Okay? As you can see here, in the case of Arial, I am using the font called Arial. But I have another case in which I'm using an Arial Narrow because it's used for my dimensions. Now, it might be sometimes difficult to understand because this name here appears in different places. For instance, if I told you that this one is used in my dimension styles, I will show you how it looks. If I'm going now to this part here, the options, the dimension style manager, and I'm going here and I'm going to modify it. Here you can see at the text part that this is the name that appears there. Now, if I click here, I'm going directly to the same place we were before, which is the text style manager. Okay? So this is the text style. Now, another thing that I can do is if by mistake I called it a name which is not proper, I can rename most AutoCAD names for objects, layers, styles, anything using the rename command. If I'm going to my rename command and I'm going to take text styles in here, I can select this and rename it to any name I want. For instance, I can call it Arial Narrow.
Dim. Arial dim.
I can call it Arial Narrow, and I can tell that it's for dimensions. Okay, this is the name. So when I click on Rename To, you can see the new name here. And probably if I'm going again to this place and select this and go to the Modify, it will be already renamed because the rename goes deeper and deeper as much as it needs. Okay?
Where did you get the rename window from?
I just typed REN.
Oh, I see. It's a
And you
command.
can see that
Okay.
AutoCAD finds everything containing
Yeah.
those three letters. You can see the render, exposure, rendering,
Yeah. Okay.
everything all together. And then, of course, maybe we can find it somewhere here because it is a manage part, but I cannot always find it. Those are applications. I don't know exactly where the rename is, but this is a very good question, because if you have a look now, and I'm going to use the rename and go to its help, you can see now that many features in AutoCAD, when I go to the help, will show exactly how to use it. This goes directly to rename. It took me directly to rename. But if I'm using another feature in AutoCAD, for instance, I'm going to select where is my multi-line text, okay, my M text, and I'm going to click F1 for help. Here you can see a little find option, and if you look up here, you'll be shown exactly where is it by an arrow. Okay, so
Yeah.
many times when you are looking where it is located in our menu, or which ribbon I have to use, or what other options there are, you just click on find and it will show. It shows, of course, the icon itself, and of course this is not for all the commands in AutoCAD, but it works. So sometimes it's a bit stupid that only people that still remember some things can remember again and again that there is a rename option in AutoCAD in order to rename most things that we name. For instance, our blocks, our dimension styles, our layers, our materials, our line types, our multi-leader styles, table styles, etc., etc. Even UCSs, when with specific names, we can change those names to other names. Names of views can be renamed, etc., etc. Now, one of the most important things to have in a file upon which we are going to be based when we create a new, clean, tidy file and keep it light and clean with no specific things we don't need, and then we have to work very hard to get rid of them, is to have a file that is almost ultralight. I mean, you have some settings in the file, and you have some layers and some styles, and that's it. Of course, the file is to be based on, it's using some units, centimeters, and it's using some different things I have down here. For instance, I don't know if we talked about, but I'm using something called snap, and I defined my snap to be half a unit or half a centimeter because I am an architect. If I were a mechanical engineer, maybe this will be 0.01 or any other more sophisticated tolerance, because we are manufacturing things with robots and 3D printers, etc., and everything is very precise. But when we go to our carpenter or our handyman and ask for doing something, usually half a centimeter will do. And what it does is that if I create any orthogonal thing, it will be always a clean number plus minus 0.5. As you can see, I drag it here or there. I don't have those stupid numbers, for instance, 146.0123586. Okay? This is important because when we create things, we want to do it accurately and precisely using the same effort than when we are doing some things that are not so precise. So because we don't have to invest anything, it's very easy to create very accurate geometry in AutoCAD while using the snap. Okay? So some things are saved within the file and some things are saved within the software. For instance, in the file itself, you can see a number of annotation scales over here which are saved within this file. And if I'm going to customize it, and for instance, decide that I don't need this, and I'm going to be deleting it, and if I never will be using this, I will delete it and save this DWT file, save. Next time I click here, I won't be having those anymore in my list because those are kept and saved within this file over here. Other things we can do, for instance, is have some paperwork in here. For instance, I can keep here 2 or 3 or more layouts with my title blocks, my frames. Even I can have a predefined location for my viewport, and I can create all that. And I can show you in a minute why is it so important for me. You know, some people, when they are ready to go with a file, are creating a frame or bringing some block from somewhere, and this is not proper. You can right-click here and, for instance, create a new layout that is within a template file. So if I'm going to another template file, let's go and see if I can find something really quick. Let's go, for instance, here. No. I'm going to take you somewhere. Let's go here. Here. Just a moment. New contents, no. Maybe this one, no. Just want to show off something. Maybe it's in here. Oh, this is a file used for creating some stuff. So maybe I can select the file, and as you can see, I have some layouts here, and if I select one of them and I click OK, I go here and I have my paper. Okay? This is a very specific paper I created for a client of mine. And this paper is very special because my client works locally but also internationally, so he has some different clients. They want to show his stuff sometimes in Hebrew and sometimes in English. So I brought this to this new brand drawing we created, and I managed to bring my stuff from another place. Now, if I take you to the model space of this, maybe there is nothing here. If I open this template, which I brought this layout from, it is a completely different thing. I mean, in the template itself, I have some rectangles that I can use to select my page size, because sometimes my floor plans are very big, and sometimes I'm dealing with some details and I need a paper that is only half this size, etc., etc. So we don't improvise with this. We just go here again, click here from template, from the same place I was before. I'm going to use this, this, and from here I'm going to bring another A3 PDF Hebrew English page in here. And when I go here, I have another completely different title block, etc., etc. So, as you can see here, I have two different places to hold my templates. One is the minimal one in which I'm creating my work, my geometry, my dimensions, my annotations and everything. And another different place to bring my sheets and sheet file stuff from. Okay, this is a very specific place in which I can keep all kind of those layouts. Now, I know that if I'm clicking now here and opting for plotting, I don't have to do anything besides maybe my CTB is now missing. But if we were missing, I would click OK, and I know everything is just fine because this is managed and predefined and created using a lot of attention only once, and then it's good forever. Okay?
Okay.
So, after you watch the video we created today at the early part of this session, if you have any questions, please ask. You can call me, you can email me, etc., etc. And I recommend to create a file that has all the things you want it to have and no more than that. I mean, create a set of layers, and what I want to show you before we say goodbye is that if I'm looking here, of course I can see my layers, but if I'm looking at the big layers in here, I usually, because I created only once, I usually add some description for each layer using two parts. One part is describing this layer, what it's going to be containing, the layer itself, and then in those brackets here I show to myself which kind of data I'm going to be using within this layer. Sometimes it will be a polyline, sometimes it will be a block, sometimes it will be a hatch, sometimes it will be a multi-leader or a dimension or something else. But as you can see, this makes it very easy to understand, oh, I didn't put it in the right layer, but I should have been put it here. Okay? So the thing is that most of the time the description is to the right of the table. So you have a, if you right click in this part over here at the header, you'll get access to a place called Customize. And you can, of course, get the description and take it to its default location, like so. Move down. And when you click OK, it will, next time we open it, it will be to the right of this dialog. Okay, so if I'm going here again to my layers, and I just stretch them a little bit to the right, you'll see that the description is now at the default place. But because many people, many Israelis want to write down names in Hebrew, and it's a little bit forbidden, I believe. It should be, of course. So I take the description and I can write down in any language I want, and then just move it to the left so they can see it directly from here. Another thing I usually do is select some layers that have some common logic within, and I group them all together into a group. So when I click in the group, I will be seeing a very short list of layers. Okay, so this is very easy to be done. You just use those groups in here. We have some groups here. You can create a new group, I believe, by using a group filter, like so. And you name it, and then you go to the complete layers list in here, and you can select any layer you want and drag it into the group filter. So next time you click on the group filter, you'll have your layer over here. Now, some global manipulations can be done with a group. For instance, I can freeze all the group altogether, or tow it, or turn it on or off, lock the group, select the specific viewport and freeze the group within this viewport, etc., etc. As you can see, there are some things can be done using a group. This is very nice to have. And then, of course, if you have some group selection, you can invert your selection to be exactly the opposite. I mean, if I'm here and I can have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers within this. If I invert my filter, I will having everything but this. So this is very interesting. And when is the next session of ours, Kathy?